Welcome to Off the Record, a legal podcast.
Hello and welcome to Off the Record, a legal podcast with attorney Rhett Burney. With years of experience in family law, personal injury cases, and estate planning services, Rhett and his team are well-versed in providing top-tier legal representation for individuals across the state of South Carolina. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist. Today, we're going to talk about wills versus trusts, what every South Carolina resident needs to know. Rhett, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Kevin. Nothing more interesting than wills and trusts. Yeah, while we're talking about that, Kevin, how are yours coming? Have you started on that yet?
It's been talked about. It's being talked about on a regular basis now, and we have somebody that my wife knows we're going to meet with. We don't have a date yet, but the wheels are in motion, Rhett.
Is that person a lawyer, Kevin?
Yes. No, they are a lawyer. Yes. Yeah.
Good.
I mean, they don't have an office and they work out of their car, but I think they said they're a lawyer. That's good enough, right?
Yeah, as long as they say they are.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
I used to practice in a very small town, and there was a lady there who would prepare these documents for people. She was not a lawyer. She charged twice as much as a lawyer, but because she wasn't a lawyer, everybody thought she was getting a good deal. You know, that was the way she made money. She eventually went to jail, of course, but for a while there, she cornered the market.
She cornered the market. She did pretty good for herself until she went to prison.
Yes. So wills versus trust.
Wills versus trust. Tell me, what is the difference between the two?
Yeah. So a will is a document that says, we're going to simplify this, right? It says when you die, how you want your assets to be distributed, who gets what in essence. And so when you pass away, your will will go through probate and your assets will be distributed as your will directs. A trust is similar to that. However, it does it outside of probate. Trust is an entity that will hold your property for you and will disperse your property for you. Either it could be during your life or after your life. And you can avoid the whole probate process of having to go to probate court and having the probate court approve how your assets are distributed. It's probably the best simple way to explain the difference in the two documents.
How would someone determine which one they need, or if they need both?
Yeah, so if you do a trust, you also need a will, but if you do a will, you do not need a trust. So when I sit down and I talk with clients, I want to get a little information from them. How old are they? What type of assets do they have? If they're married, is this their first marriage or second marriage? Do they have stepchildren, non-stepchildren? Lots of people come in wanting trust and they don't really need them. And we try to steer them to the will, or there are other ways of avoiding probate as well that we talk to them about. But if I would say as a rule of thumb, when I'm advising somebody, hey, you need to do a trust, I look at one, or do they have a blended family? So the husband and wife are married, but each of them have a child or children from a different relationship. I tell them they need a trust, because ultimately what can happen is, even though you may have just a will that says everything goes to my wife, and then once I pass away or once she passes away, it goes to our children equally. Well, if you die first, she can go change that. So she gets all of your stuff, and then she leaves everything to her children, and your children are left out because they're not hers. So when I have those blended family situations, that's one of the main times that I say that they need to do a trust. Sometimes because of their businesses that they have or the complexity of their estate, we may steer them towards a trust. But for the most part, most people don't need a trust. They're not a bad thing to have. They're more expensive than a will because they're longer, they're more in depth. They just take longer to draft because they're a little more complex. But a lot of people, they hear, hey, you need a trust to avoid probate. Probate's not that big of a deal. We do them all day long in my office, handle those estates. When you sit down with a lawyer, ask them those questions. Why do you? If they just say the only reason you need a trust is to avoid probate, you may not need one, because I don't think that's the main reason why you pick a trust over a will.
I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily understand what trusts are, because I feel like a lot of people think that they're only for super wealthy people with multiple businesses. Can you sort of speak to that? And is that true? Can you debunk that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, let's kind of describe what a trust is a little bit. It's kind of like a holding company. Okay. It holds your assets. It owns your assets. And so, so it's separate from you. So we'll make the Kevin trust. Okay. And so Kevin, if you set up a trust, you have to fund that trust. You have to put assets into that trust. So you may put your house, it may be in the name of the trust, or an account in the name of the trust. So the trust never dies, right? You do die, but the trust doesn't, and the trust owns it. It holds your property. And then when certain events that we would set out as they occur, that asset gets distributed to certain people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. That's a great way to describe it. Is there a difference in the taxes between a will and a trust? Does a trust help minimize tax burdens for beneficiaries more?
Yeah, it could be. That's probably more complex for this podcast. Very specific to every individual, depending upon what their situation is. We get that question a lot. When we have that question, that is a long conversation with a client. So yeah, taxes can come into play. I mean, there are a way of avoiding some taxes, just depending upon, different things that we can do within the trust, depending upon what you may not even have an estate that is a taxable estate anyway, right? It may just not need it because you don't have enough assets. So, doing a trust for that reason wouldn't pay off. So I would tell everybody, if they're thinking about trying to avoid taxes completely with a trust, the trust isn't going to do it. But you need to sit down with a lawyer who knows what to ask you, to tell you what type of tax savings you may be able to have if you do set up a trust.
I'm an older dad. I have a 4-year-old son. We had kids a little late in life, but I had a kid a little late in life. Is there, if I wanted to, if we want to leave stuff to our kid, he'll be,
Right.
if we were to pass and he was still a minor, does a trust protect more in those situations versus a will?
Yeah. And you can set up a trust within a will. Yeah, because you have such a young child, you're playing the odds that something's going to happen to you and your wife, before that child becomes an adult. So you can set up a trust that says, if both of us have passed away, then this person, a trustee, a trusted adult, will then handle our assets and make sure those assets are used for the benefit of our child until they reach a certain age, maybe 18, 25, 40, whatever you want to choose. And then those assets are distributed.
Okay, gotcha. And you have to appoint a trustee when you do a trust, correct?
That's right. Yes, you do.
How do people typically, do they struggle choosing someone? I mean, do you want it to be a family member? Do you not want it to be a family member? Does it just sort of depend on your relationships and whatnot?
Yeah, within the word trustee is the word trust. It is someone that you can trust, because there are people that can become a trustee and take advantage of the trust. So I think you just have to look around, right? We have terrible family members, right? I wouldn't trust them with anything. Plus, there are other strangers who obviously wouldn't name them. So I think it's someone that you would want, that you would trust. Well, not that you want, but that you have. They're going to have the ability to decide who gets what and when they get it as the trustee for the terms of the trust. So yeah, pick somebody that, one, wants to do it, and two, can do it. You wouldn't pick somebody, Kevin, right now, because you're still young. You wouldn't pick a trustee who's 95 years old, right? I don't care how smart they are, because they're probably not going to be here too much longer. So you have to be mindful of that as well. And we name alternate trustees, successor trustees. So if your first choice can't or won't do it, then we go to the next one, and then the next one. And usually we name one or two just in case.
The just in case trustee?
Yeah, just in case trustee.
Like it.
And of course, you can always change them. But, if you make amendments to your trust, you can always change them. You probably have those type of relationships with people that, hey, you're great friends, but then something happens, they move away. That friendship's not as great as it. You may want to change it in that particular situation.
Does a trust provide more control over assets after death, or is it pretty much the same as a will?
That's a great question. I think it provides more control depending upon how it's written. And you can make a pretty tight will and decide how things go. But the problem is, especially if you're married and you give everything to your spouse, once somebody gets the asset, they're not giving it back. So I would say, if you were going to compare the two, I would say the trust is probably easier to control the assets and how they're distributed in most cases.
Okay. Do you find that more people that when you're recommending product, whether a will or a trust to somebody, do you recommend wills more often than trusts?
Yeah, I do. And that's just because of the situation that people are in, that not every case dictates it. And I tell them, there is there's a difference. There's a price difference between the two, but I want them to look at the need first and then look at the price difference. trusts, because if the need is there, then it's worth the price.
Now, I know you said you can make changes to trusts or wills, if you as you need to. Can you just revoke them as well if you for whatever reason you don't want it to be there anymore?
Yeah, with the will, absolutely. You can just tear it up, throw it away, what have you. With the trust, you can if it's a revocable trust. If you set up an irrevocable trust, then you can't change it. So you have to be careful. I have clients that come in and they do these irrevocable trusts for whatever reason at the time they did it, and they want to change it, and we can't. It's too late.
What are the reasons someone would want it to be irrevocable?
Just because they like a lot of control may be a reason. There may be some, different tax advantages, some government benefit advantages in doing it. But for the most part, most people, if they do a trust, it's going to be a revocable trust. You can revoke it, change it, do what you need to with it.
Yeah, that seems like something that'd be a bit risky to say, like, I want to set up a trust and nothing can ever happen to it no matter what. I mean, you never know what life's going to throw at you, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there are certain cases where it's very, very, very beneficial to do an irrevocable trust, but most people don't need that type of protection.
So for anyone listening who may not have a plan, a will, or a trust and knows that they need to do that, what kind of things should they plan for before they come sit down with someone like you?
Yeah, first determine your goals, right? Why do you need this document? Everybody needs a will or a trust. Plan how you want your property to be divided. If you have, and who do you want in charge? Who do you want to be in charge of your estate or your trust? If you have children, who do you want to be their guardians, just in case you die before they reach the age of adulthood? We don't need social security numbers. We don't need bank account numbers or anything like that when we do them, but we at least need a general idea if there's specific pieces of property that you want to leave someone. If you want to leave everything to a person, that's easy. But if there's specific pieces of property, list them out for us. Make that helps us make sure that your property goes to the person that you want it to. And then also think about your children. At what age do you want them to be able to get the assets that they're entitled to under the will or the trust? And that's hard sometimes because you have a 4-year-old. That 4-year-old at 16 may be the most mature person and you know that you can trust everything with that child. Likewise, your 4-year-old one day will be 40 and maybe he still hasn't figured it out yet. Mm-hmm. So, and we have people change the ages based upon how their child is doing. So those are the main things that I would ask the client to think about prior to them coming in, because I have clients that come in and they want me to decide how things should be divided, and that happens. Yeah, I mean, I don't care. Give it all to me, right? But I can't.
You're like, I know this guy who hosts podcasts. He could use that.
He could use it. Yes, Kevin and Rhett.
Kevin and Rhett. That's all you need to know.
All you need to know. Yeah, but that happens sometimes, and I tell them, I'm not the guy to decide how to divide your estate. That is your property. You need to decide. I don't know the people in your life. So yeah, don't ask your lawyer how they should give things.
Yeah. So basically, like just come with a plan. You don't have to come with like the final plan, but at least come with knowing your assets, knowing what you want to happen to them, and then you'll be way more prepared to meet with someone like you.
Yeah, it can be very simple. You can bullet point things. Let's just talk about it and get an idea. When I bring people in, I'm going to ask about their family situation. I want to see the dynamics of that, because that's what we're trying to either preserve or prevent problems from happening. So be prepared to talk about that as well, because I need to know, as the lawyer drafting this document, who I need to protect or who I need to make sure, protect other people from. So you need to be thinking about that as well.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning into Off the Record, a legal podcast with attorney Rhett Burney. For more information or to connect with Rhett, you can visit rhettburney.com. And please like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. Rhett, thanks so much for your time. Always great chatting with you.
Good to see you, Kevin.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.